edition of Imagination, The Awakening, and where I really believe that imagination is the key to a life without limits and that transformation that takes place. So, with me today is Tracy Borson. She is a coach and she does events on LinkedIn, and I'm sure she does events elsewhere as well. If you want to know more about Tracy, put something in the chat if you'd like to. And I am Stanley Dietrich from 360 Life Without Limits. And I really believe in that life can be without limits and that we are the creators of our limitations and also our experiences. So today we're going to dive into the idea of seeing your future self. And it's more than a hyperbole, or it's more than just some kind of fancy thought. It is actually the ability to see your future, see yourself now, because I believe that we create things twice. We create them in our head, okay, like the boogeyman underneath the bed, when you were a little kid. We create that in our head. And then if you were unfortunate like me, I screamed in the middle of the night. It woke my mom up, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. So in that situation, my imagination did not work in my favor. So what I want you to do is take that, and now let's look at the opposite side of that. And I want you to join me today, and I'd like to join you on this journey of, let's get on a train that's about to leave, and it's going to take you to your future destination 5 years from now. And why do I say 5 years? Because we always, when we look back at our life, we never could have imagined that we would have accomplished the things that we did back 5 years ago. And it can be a total upturn, upset, transformation of everything you thought of. It could be, in my own life, the death of a child, the death of my mother, the birth of my children, the graduation of my children, the loss of a job, getting fired. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. And having an idea of finding myself in a place that I am 5 years from that point, I think sometimes if I would have saw it exactly the way that it played out, I would have said, why did I hold my breath for so long? So,
okay, Stanley, I have a question about this though, because I had this experience once with a coach, and I was doing this seminar called the Creating Happiness seminar. And before the seminar started, the coach interviewed every person and in essence was trying to get us to extrapolate what happiness looks like. And at that time, it was only possible for me to extrapolate on the trajectory in which my mind was already thinking, right? So I had this experience today, and what happiness looked like for me in the future was very much based on what existed today. And just like you said in your story, so anyway, my experience of this was I got very frustrated with this coach because I kept saying like what I foresee happiness to be in the future, and she kept being like, nope. And it was my first experience with that coach, so it was kind of like but in retrospect, I see what she was trying to do. She was trying to break me out of my predefined box of what happiness could look like. So I wanted to, before, I don't know if there's people watching this show who might be feeling that too, right? Like, yeah, okay, so my life today, even me personally, right? Like my life today, I don't think I could have imagined it 5 years ago because I didn't have the permission, the ideation skills. Like, I mean, what we're here to do, practice our imagination, right? Like I don't think I could have extrapolated that. So what are some of the things that you see can help people if they're like in this place and thinking like, I'm only capable of extrapolating from my current situation? What are some things that can help us like break out of that box to actually start to imagine things that might be meaningful?
exactly. And I love that. I love the way you phrase that. And here's what I say is, allow yourself to become childlike again. Okay, not childish, but childlike.
And okay, I was hoping you would say that because I also have one. We're talking about time travel today, so I wore my Back to the Future the musical shirt because I just thought that was appropriate. Um, but my son is very into the movie series Back to the Future right now, and for when and episode 3 happens to have a train, so like all of this is just like really relevant to my experience right now. But we were watching the movie the other day, and he turns to me and he is like, "Would you go back to the future with me?"
Right.
Because in his experience, he's 5, for people who are watching who don't know him. That's possible. All of that is possible. And even in that experience, so like my immediate being the adult responsible experience, like, well, time travel isn't possible today. Although I did say today. That doesn't mean it's not possible in the future. And I don't know what that would do to humanity. But like, there's enough stories about there's a reason why Doc wanted to destroy the time machine. But like, I think that when you go back to that child, like all of these things are possible,
Mhm.
and it's not foolish, it's not childish from a child's perspective, right? It's imaginative and creative and wonderful, and we like, I don't know. Sometimes as adults, I think we're partly responsible for squashing that in ourselves. Right? So I just wanted to share that because I think that's also something that we see. It's almost like society believes you're supposed to grow out of that, right? Like that's something you have when a kid and you're ridiculous, and we need to filter that out of you. And then we get to be adults and we know time travel isn't currently available to humans, maybe not even possible, right? So we just like, I don't know. It just we lose that sense of wonder.
Okay, as a coach, okay, so you just woke up the coach inside of me. So if I may reframe that, and my clients know me for that phrase, and if I may reframe that, time travel going into the future is absolutely possible. And here's what I say. I preface it as this: how many times have you anticipated the conversation that you're going to have with that one person, and how you're going to respond, and how you're going to walk into that environment, and what the words you're going to say, and the energy that you're going to take into that environment? Okay.
Yes, lots of times. I actually have a whole bunch of people I've talked to in the past week who like think about this as going to networking events, right? They're going to have to go to a networking event. They're going to have to pitch. How many times do you run that through in your head before you go? Okay, point taken.
And so when we use that for our advantage, okay, now we can buckle up and we can envision that train. Okay, if you've ever been to an amusement park, you wait 4 hours to ride a 17-second ride, right?
It's true.
And you strap into that train. You get up onto the platform and you step into that car, that train, and then you strap in. They make sure that you're strapped in, and that's what I want you to do today. Strap in, and now they load the train, and it's going really slow until it catches those sprockets, whatever it is. Okay, I'm not the engineer of roller coasters. And then they do a countdown, and you can't even think, but you've already anticipated the exhilaration that is going to take place on that ride. And it's over before you know it. And it is correlated so much with, you get off the ride and you're just like, you're screaming for 17 seconds like a child, like a child. Okay. And your hair's back. You probably ate a few bugs, and I won't go there right now.
But you don't even care, right? You don't even care that you ate a few bugs.
You spent 3 hours making your hair up. You've got makeup all over, right? And you get on this ride, and your eyes are watering, your hair is all messed up, and you're like, "Let's do that again." And what I want to say is that we can do that. Now, we've created the anticipation of what the event is going to be in an unfavorable outcome. Now, let's turn that around. Let's flip that on its head and turn that situation into something that is favorable. So
Mm.
this is where I invite people to get onto this, see your future, not just this imaginary fairy tale, you know, I don't know. I don't even want to bring up a reference. Um, but what would it look like if you could have it all your way? And why couldn't you have it all your way? Who told you that you couldn't have it that way? So, I'm inviting people to jump on this train and go, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom.
Boom. It's making me think of Rock and Roller Coaster at Hollywood Studios at Disney World, where it's just like, let's get ready to rock. And then where it just like shoot you out so fast. And you get off and you're like, let's do it again. Except I just waited 3 hours to get on that ride. And I really don't want to wait 3 hours again.
Exactly, exactly. When you can feel what you felt. Okay, so there's a tool that I use with all my clients. Okay, and it's called the triad, and it is the understanding your physiology, understanding the language, and understanding the emotion. Okay, so you've got, what are the things that you were saying, what are the things that you were feeling, what does the environment look like, and what is the title of that triad? What is it that you want to be? You've got the opportunity to create your future 5 years from now, and it's not going, okay, well, I got 5 years to do it. No, it's I don't make it to the finish line if I don't get on the starting block. And if I get on the starting block, but I don't take the first step off when the gun fires, I don't get to see the finish line. And what is your best self? So when I have a I think that everybody should be happy. Okay, studies have proven that it makes life better. Um, but what I challenge people to be is more than happy, more than just happenstance, more than circumstantial base, to have an eternal joy, to have a joy inside of you that you've created. And it is the ability to brush it off your shoulder. And, sometimes when I'm working with people, I have the luxury and the opportunity to say, um, did you have guacamole this morning before we met? And they're like, no, I don't even like guacamole. And I said, well, you got a lot of chips on your shoulder today. I thought maybe you were dipping something. Okay. And it kind of breaks up the spirit, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, you're right. Because I have that luxury with my clients. They know that I love them. They know that my best interest is for them, but their ability to have the best interest in mind for themselves and allow me the permission to coerce and to coach and to nudge and to make maybe think about things a little bit different. Kind of like, when you said you can't create your future, and I'm like, I challenge that. So thank you for allowing that. And I love that.
I love getting coached in real time. But okay, so there's something that's really standing out for me in all these things that you've said, Stanley, which is this concept of exhilaration. So, like, I'm imagining my moment before the roller coaster takes off, and there is like this exhilaration, but then it like continues, right? It's like the ride meets the expectation, but it's because you created that expectation that you will be accelerated that it exists. And then once it's finished, you're like, wow, that was so exhilarating. That's why you want to do it again. And I've done back to back roller coasters a couple of times, and my stomach is not so much of a fan of it, but like it does that. And so it's just interesting because even from my own perspective, I don't know that I've ever thought about like what does an exhilarated future look like, right?
Right.
I think a lot of times we think about this creation perspective from a very logical place, right? Maybe we're looking to make a certain amount of money. Maybe we want to have a certain style of living arrangement, right? Like maybe there's like we're trying to get into a relationship here, we're trying to have X amount of clients, and all of these things are very logical. But what happens when we take that like additional layer into being like, what does it look like for me to feel exhilarated in my day, right? And what can I do to create that? And part of it is the imagining that that is possible, that you can live your life on a day-to-day basis feeling exhilaration.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is the conditioning that we have allowed to become the rule of our life. So listen, we go to school, and the first thing that they do is they teach creativity out of children.
Yes.
Okay?
Also, can I just say this? I need to say this because this is like the type of art projects, Nicholas. Get my son is in kindergarten. They post a picture, and the creative lesson is that you're supposed to copy the picture. You're supposed to duplicate the work there, right? It's handprint pictures, and we're all going to make handprint polar bears, right? And everybody makes a handprint polar bear. And I was like, is that? I mean, it's activity. Sure, it's an activity, but like, let's not confuse that with creativity, because creativity would be more about, okay, we're doing handprint art, but you put your handprint on and you decide what that looks like and make it into, you might want to make it into polar bear. You might want to make it into a flower. I always think like, if Nicholas had his way, that thing would be a ceiling fan so fast, right? Because that's how he sees the world. But we think we're doing creative things.
Yeah.
But that's not, it doesn't actually allow our mind to be creative.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say that just in case there's other parents at home that are feeling the same way about what's being sold to us as creativity. Creativity isn't necessarily, I mean, I'm not saying you can't feel creative in that scenario, but if everything that's being given to you is being dictated and controlled and structured, then it's not actually allowing your brain to play.
Yeah. And it's getting back to the root of that childlike mind as to what am I looking for? If I could have it all my way, what would that be? You know, um, when I describe my, I'm gonna probably go out on a limb here, but when I describe my future partner, I know how tall I want her to be. I know the mindset I want. I know the attitude around food. I know the attitude around people. I know the persona, and and I have that vision, and I have that creativity, and I have that imagination, and I see the interaction already before it happens. Okay, and it's you can do this in any aspect, and once our reticular activating system is awakened, that's that part in the back of our brain that if I tell you that I want you to look for green cars. Now, how many green cars have you really noticed in the last 2 months as you're out traveling?
We'll say the other day I noticed one green car because it was like a bright green car.
Now, what I want you to notice is how many you see in the next 7 days.
Okay.
Now, by me saying that, now I do this with my clients as well. By me saying that, even 6, 8, 10 months later, I get text messages from clients, or I'll be in a conversation with them, and I cannot get this green car thing out of my mind. So when we can imagine something that's not there in our peripherals, creating your future, seeing yourself in the future, what does that look like? And creating an amazing amount of joy. So when people always say the line, what would your future self say to you? Blah 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 blah. Okay, what would you say? What excuse would you give your future self? Is my question. What excuse would you give your future self for not believing more in yourself than you did? Okay, it's not from the outside world. And what I suggest is that stop being afraid to be afraid.
Mm.
You know,
I met a guy the other day who had behind him love fear.
love fear. Yeah,
He's a salesperson, so it's kind of necessary in sales, but it's it's true. We're so afraid to be afraid.
yeah, yeah. Don't be afraid to be afraid. What's the worst that can happen? Somebody can say no. That's the worst thing that can happen. Okay.
They're already saying no right now because you didn't ask them, right? So like
Right. Yeah. I'm saying no by not asking. I'm telling myself no for
I'm
something that I want.
filtering out the opportunity for you to say yes
Exactly.
myself. Yeah.
Exactly. So, what does that look like? What does your coaching career look like? What is your relationship with your children or your spouse, or what is your relationship with your community? What does that look like? And create it first in your mind, and not allowing your imagination to hijack you by coming up with all the logical reasons of why this does not make sense,
Mm.
and come up with the illogical reasons of why it does make sense.
Okay, I need to share something here because this is the
Okay?
thing that I feel like perfectly matches this.
Okay?
So I love bowling. I'm not very good at bowling, but I love bowling. It's very fun for me. Nicholas loves bowling. In Strathmore, the town I live, there's no bowling alley. You have to go like an hour into the city to find a bowling alley. And so I keep telling my family, I'm like, we need to open a bowling alley. One, because there's tons of young families here, and like 90% of the kids would have their birthday parties at the bowling alley. So, like, there's for sure demand for it. And then the other day, Nicholas was like, Mom, you know what? So I could be the one who like gets the shoes off the shelf, and then you could be the one who gives the shoes to the people. And he had all this like worked out on like how we could make it happen. Not from a financial perspective, of course. I have no idea what it costs to like open a bowling alley, but it just feels like it plays in so perfectly into this part. Like, and I don't know that we'll ever open a bowling alley, although I feel like Boris and Bowl just has like a nice ring to it. um, but when I think about it, this is the thing. When I think about it, I get excited. I feel like it actually feels, and I said this to Nicholas the other day too, or we might have been talking to my parents. Like, if anybody had ever asked me as a kid what I wanted to be as an adult, it never would have said run a bowling alley.
Right.
Right? Like it wouldn't have been in my like scope. But now I'm like, oh man, that would be so fun. And I could like do playlists and we could do like light shows and like it could be fun, but it feels exhilarating. And if I compare it to the feeling I felt when I was in my senior vice president corporate job, like that didn't feel exhilarating. It felt other things, right? Like it felt challenging, it felt rewarding, I felt a sense of achievement. There were other things it felt, but it didn't feel exhilarating. And also, if you don't like have that oomph, then I think that's like part of the energy that helps flow into the ideation of like, how could this be possible? Instead of, because yeah, there's gonna be hard things along the way. Like I said, I don't know. It seems expensive to like make all the floors and do all the gadgets, and who fixes those? I don't know who fixes those. Would I have to learn how to fix that? I don't know. Right? Like there's lots of logical things that would convince you like, no, that like too much work, too hard to do, not for me. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is my retirement,
Yeah.
Boris and Bowl.
Yeah. And then there's another exercise that I will also have people do, and it is not, life. Life comes, and we have seasons, and one day I'm going to take my last breath. And at that place, so I've done several funerals, and when I talk, the way that I open up a funeral service is I will say, if John could be with us 5 minutes, what is it that he would say? And this is what I think, based on the information that I've gathered from family members and his friends, this is what I think John would say. And so, and I would bring up those topics, those emotions, or those elements, or those events that he would share. And just for 5 minutes, he's back, and people can actually see that person, or she's back, can actually see that person. And it's very revealing, in the respect that one day we're going to come to that place. And what is it that I would want somebody to say about me? What is it that I would really want to be known for? What is it that I want my life to have portrayed in an authentic and an integrous reflection? And is it one that I would, if I had the opportunity, I look back and go, I don't have many regrets. And everything that I did led me to where I am. And the people that I touched led me to be who I am. And that's my identity. And I did exercise the desires of my heart that were positive. And I created that person. I didn't allow the environment to create me, but I created it. And that's where, I think, we get on that train and we can see our future self, and our future self is waiting for us. And if we create it here first, that's the beginning. Now bring it out into the physical. Thomas Edison, he said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just found out the ways that it didn't work. That's the best way not to. I think he's the one that said, you can't solve the problem the same way that you created it. I tell people, if you're digging a hole and it keeps getting bigger and deeper, quit digging.
And it seems simple logically, and I think a lot of times people understand these things logically. One of the things I know, like when I was growing up, my entire childhood, my dad used to say, you choose whether or not you're happy.
Right.
And like when I think about my experience of that as a teenager, I'm like, okay, Dad.
Right.
Like, you don't know my experience, right? Like, I'm a dramatic teenage girl. You don't know anything about this. This is my experience. I have all of these circumstances. I can't choose to be happy. These circumstances dictate my ability to do that. And it wasn't until I did my first personal development program. I did a course called the Landmark Forum. And I remember I brought my parents as guests to my graduation. And it was so funny because my dad at the break was like, what is different about this than like what I have been telling you like pretty much your entire life? And the difference was that like I got it at a level that wasn't just logic, right? I actually had like experienced it. I had experienced a moment where the circumstances were what they were, and I chose to be happy. I actually prefer the word empowered. I feel happy when I feel empowered. So I tend to, and different words resonate with different people. But it was just so like, it was that ability to go beneath the logic. So do you have any advice for people who feel like they're maybe stuck in the logiciness of these types of things? Like, okay, logically, I understand your example, right? Like, okay, I stress out about this pitch I have to do at a networking event. I am clearly thinking about the future, trying to manifest a thing, right? Okay, I get that logically because I've had that experience, but I haven't yet had that experience where I've created a like exhilarating or powerful future and had that manifest. So do you have any tips from a like body perspective or like questions we can ask ourselves that allow us to like penetrate level deeper than the logic?
Yeah, well, ultimately, our physiology has everything to do with our experience. So if you walk into an environment and your shoulders are rolled in, and I do a lot. I mean, I've read body language since I was a kid. I knew when my mom was ready to throw a shoe at me. I mean, I knew the signs, right? So I take that going into the future. There are people that want to throw a shoe at you all the time, and I just know how to duck now, and but the idea of that is, and I got off on that tangent. I apologize for that, but um, the physiology has everything to do with the outcome of your experience. I communicate my insecurities or my idiosyncrasies on anybody that I am around. So when I walk into an environment, if I walk in feeling less than or like imposter, and then there's nobody that's exempt, or no title that's exempt from this, because I've worked with CEOs and they tell me, hey, I got to be honest. I got this transfer job. It's a lateral move in a different company, but it's a lot more money, and I feel like I'm not equipped. And so their physiology is already down. So if it's proven that if you create a power move, okay. I had the opportunity to work with a young man at the beginning of this year's football season in our area. And this young man would puke before a game. He almost didn't even want to play. He's a good player. And I did a session with him. And when I'm saying a quick session, I'm talking like 10 minutes. I did a presentation to the football team for about 45 minutes. And then I did like 7 minutes with him. He got a full ride scholarship to a college to play football. Now, here's a kid that was afraid to go out, and he'd puke before every game. That's how nervous he was. And I helped him see himself in a short period of time of a future self. And I also helped him get into a physiological state that it changed everything. And, his dad told the coach, I don't know who that guy was, but what he did has changed, and I won't mention the name, this young man like I've never seen before. And, when you can imagine these things and the impact that you make, that you want to make in life, then go and do them. Don't be afraid to be afraid. Did I answer the question?
I don't know, but I think that thing. So let me ask you this, because I am a like authenticity kind of person, right? I always think that there's not necessarily just one way to help people move through these things. And so from that conversation that you had with that young man, is there something you would take away from that you could share with the people today to say, like, this is an exercise you could do to look at your future self, or a question you can ask, or something that allows people to like take a little first step? If they're feeling like, again, they're kind of stuck in well, like, this is my life today, and what I feel like would be easier or make me happier is that I could have someone come and clean my house. Right? Okay, well, like, sure, yep, it's nice to not have to clean your own house, but it's generally not that's leading into your overall experience that's creating your world today. So I'm just, I don't know. I feel like I've been through like so many different things, and I've had lots of coaches, and sometimes something like really resonates. Some other people, not so much, right? I remember doing this exercise actually as part of the Landmark Forum on fear. And at that time, I wasn't a mom. I did not identify with the exercise, right? And there were people who came out of, we did this like 20 minutes of this, like visualizing all of your fears. And I was disconnected from it the entire time, right? I couldn't connect with anything that I felt particularly afraid of. I didn't have a really serious relationship at the time, right? Like I didn't have any substantial fear, but there were people who came out of it just like sobbing, heaving, crying because they had spent 20 minutes with their fear. So the point I'm making with that is not that I have no fear. And now, honestly, as a mom, I have different fears and nightmares, and that's for a different show. But like, there's things that resonate and things that don't. So I'm just trying to like open the doors to like a different things that people might be able to try if they found like they like listening to conversations like this and it feels empowering at the time, and they logically believe that like, yeah, there's something bigger for me, or there's something more out there, but they always get stuck in the execution of the visualization.
Right. So the idea is, what is it that you want?
So let me ask you this, because I would also say there were parts of my life where I didn't actually know what I wanted.
Okay.
I had a very clear understanding of what I thought society thought I should want.
What was that last part?
So I had a very clear understanding of what society thought I should want.
Okay.
So I should want this title. I should want this amount of money. I should want a house. I should want a car. I should want a dedicated relationship. I should want all these things. I've been taught that I should want these things.
Yes. So the key word there is should.
Right.
So
but I think sometimes that people don't know enough that, like, honestly, it took me until I was 36 to realize that that was someone else's should. I thought that was I thought that was the thing I wanted. I wanted to go for this job. I wanted to go for like a house and 2 cars. And this is what the like quote unquote perfect family looks like, right? Like I thought I wanted that for quite some time until I got to the point where I had all those things and was like, oh, I don't really care about any of these at all. And now what's next? Well, I've like followed this trajectory and it hasn't given me meaning. So that was when my personal development journey began, because I was like, well, this isn't working. Like that trajectory is wrong. I don't know what trajectory is right. I got to go figure it out. But is there any more like, I just want to see if you have any like probing questions, like, is that what you really want? Or is that what you think society's taught you that you want?
That's exactly it. Because anytime that we are looking for an external experience or product to create an emotion, we're giving our power away. Mm. And so, it comes back to, what is it that you want? And, everything unbarred. Just what is it that you want? And why is it that you want that? And what is one thing that you think could create that happening? What is just one thing? So I want to reverse my age. Okay. Why do I want to do that? Because I want to be able to barrel roll with my great grandchildren, not just my grandchildren. So I get on the floor and I barrel roll with my granddaughters. All right. And they have this little tube that it's like 18 inches, if it's that, in diameter, right? And it's like, I think it's about 8 feet long. And I crawl through that. Okay. And I'm crawling through it with them. Now, why is that important? Because I'm in their world and they make me live again. And so what is it that I want, and why do I want that? I imagine in my mind what that might look like. And when I can give a reason to having that experience, my physiology changes. It's the same thing. It's the same thing as you're going to have an argument with your spouse or with your child. They've done something bad and you got the phone call and they're going to come home and you're going to meet them and you're going to reprimand them. Or you ask them, hey, I'll give you a real quick example here. My son, when he was in, I want to say 2nd grade, he told the teachers that he chewed up a straw and swallowed it. Right? The straw was gone. And he said he chewed it up and swallowed it. So he gets off the bus and I said, hey, how you feeling? And So he's like, okay. I said, so I hear you swallowed a straw. Yeah. I said, you know what that straw is going to do? And I started to explain to him. He said, I'm not feeling so good. I said, is it the straw? Or could that be, the Holy Spirit talking to you because maybe you didn't? Oh, it was a toothpick. It was a toothpick. And so I carried a water bottle with me down to the bus stop, and I took a nail with me, and I put that nail into that water bottle. And I said, now, would you want to drink that? Would you want to represent that? And he goes like, no. I said, well, that's what that toothpick would do if it's actually inside you, because it's probably sticking into something. And he's like, well, uh, I really didn't eat toothpick. Okay. So how many times do we do that to ourselves?
Mm.
We fabricate an idea that we're too old, we're too short, we're too fat, we're too skinny. We're in a relationship. Hey, we've been in it for 7 years. We might as well stay in it. We're in a job that we hate. And I'm not talking you out of staying in that. I'm just saying, imagine what it is that you really want. And if you're not getting it, then see what you can do to change that environment. And if you can't change the environment, then change you, and then change the outcome. And, you know, there are people that stay in marriages that are way too long. I mean, stay in jobs that they hate way too long, and they retire and then they regret.
Mhm.
I'm saying stop the train, get off and get on the other train, and go to your future, see what it is that you want. What would you say to yourself? If I told my granddaughters, you can't ride a bike now, you might as well just hang it up, you know? That would be dumb. That would be mean. Why do we do that with ourselves?
Mhm.
We wouldn't treat our children that way, and hopefully none of our listeners are. Um, but why would we treat ourselves that way? Because they are going to emulate, or our community is going to emulate what they see in us. And if we step out of the box and quit being afraid to be afraid, then then and the other thing they can do, they can go to my website and book a call with me if they'd like to have a conversation, go a little bit deeper, and see if we can come to a place where we can create a future. And I say, we can come to a place where we can create a future.
Mhm. Well, and that's something that like I've been thinking about for this whole episode too, because in the movie Back to the Future, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen the series, but in the second movie, one of the characters comes back with a fax from the future, which like that wasn't accurate because we're not using fax machines anymore. But like, and at the end of the movie, it gets erased
Yeah.
because a decision that had created that future didn't, a different decision had been made, and now that future doesn't exist. And that's what they say at the end. Like, I came back and it's erased.
Yeah.
Of course it's erased. Your future hasn't been written yet. You create it. So make it what you want it to be. And I think we forget that every day is an opportunity for us to create the future that we want. But also, if we just like sit back and we watch this future train go by, that is not going to get us to the future we want. We have to jump on the train. We probably have to shovel some coal, right? There's things we have to do that move that train forward, and we create that. So step one is to imagine what you want that to be, and step two is let's take a step. And sometimes we might take a step that doesn't actually take us in the right direction, right? We're not all omnipresent or whatever. We don't know the future. So I don't know that this thing I'm going to do today is going to achieve that, but I believe it, right? I believe there's a possibility of that leading to that. And then I adjust. This is where the failure piece comes in, right? Okay, I tried that. That didn't accomplish what I was trying to do. Let's not do that. Let's go try something different. And if we have a good practice of using our imagination, then we also have a deeper funnel of things that we can try to get to our final destination.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what this show is about. I've never done this before. Um, I, just one day, and I told you, I woke up and I said, hey, well, let's just do this. And you said, well, you find somebody to do these with. And I go like, okay, well, would you do it with me? Like you
And
could have
here
said,
we are.
yeah, and here we are. And so this is the idea, is that I thought that it was going to be so much more difficult. I mean, I've had my technology.
Yes, if you were here for the first episode, you would know we had some tech difficulties.
So, but you know what? That's the learning curve. It's don't be afraid to be afraid. And hey, if it doesn't turn out exactly the way that you envisioned it, if there's elements that you've enjoyed along the way, and if you didn't enjoy any of the elements, now you know what not to repeat. So it's a win.
Yep.
It's a win. All right. Well, any last thoughts? Any last?
There is no one way, right? We talk about this train and it's going in a direction. I think sometimes our brains can get stuck on, like, in real life, there's train tracks and the trains only go on the train tracks. They go one way or the other way. And in life, that's not a thing. I remember having someone share with me once that this was in regards to, like, how we grew up and whether or not we agreed with what our parents did. And a lot of times, if we don't agree with what our parents did, we think we need to do the opposite, because, like, it runs like a train track. They did that, so I have to do this, and that's the opposite of that. But there's like 360-degree worth of experience here. So even if you're like, okay, my train was going here, but actually it needs to just go like there.
Yeah.
Right? We might not even have to shift that much, right? We might have to just make a little tweak. And I think just reminding ourselves that this isn't a, like, on off
Right.
scenario, that this is a mosaic experience, is usually how I describe the human experience. A lot of stuff is happening over here, stuff is happening over here, right? And we are the sum of all of those pieces. And that is part of the fuel that allows our train to go. But we don't have to just go on one direction. We don't have to follow one other person's direction, right? We have our direction and we create that. It's like, I don't know if people remember this game. I think it's from the late 80s. It was called Lemmings. And there was, like, all these lemmings, and they would, like, they walk. The game is just a whole line of lemmings walking. And there's a big hole in the middle of the screen. And what you need to do is you need to try and lose as few lemmings as possible. So you build a bridge to get over. So you need building lemmings, and there's a whole strategy associated with it. But the point is that you build as you go, right? There's no bridge there I'm waiting to cross. I have to build the bridge as I go. And sometimes you lose lemmings that march off the end of your bridge that hasn't made it to the end. And that is maybe those experiences where we feel like, oh, that didn't quite work out, or something that our brain might tell us is a failure, but I'm still in process, right? I'm not done yet. So keep building.
Exactly.
Keep building your tracks.
Yeah. Every day is a new day to create. We don't have to duplicate yesterday. And the future is yours right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let's go get it.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Stanley.
Good having you on here, and we'll see you at the next time we meet. All right.
Thanks, everyone.